Now, back to Steiny and Guru on 95.7 The Game.
Yes, sir. Steiny and Guru. No Steiny as he's on the links, the golf course. Larry Krueger holding it down. My wife just sent me a text. That was awful. Larry, I told you I'm in the middle. I'm in a battle. I don't want to give in and get readers. And it's dark in here. So it's like the menu when I'm at a restaurant. But that last one, I apologize. You're laughing now. I apologize to everybody and Carter. Dude, I couldn't see. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, I might need to go get me some readers, Grandy. But I still got 20/20 vision, the doctor told me. No, seriously, I went and got my eyes checked.
Okay.
20/20.
Okay.
But I can still do from afar. But when there's not enough lighting, your boy's going to struggle.
Yeah, I hear you.
Glad you could laugh.
I hear you. You. You know, and it's funny. It happens to the best of them. I was watching a little PTI a couple weeks ago, and both Wilbon and Kornheiser are going with the readers.
And Steiny has them, and I'm just like, maybe I need. If I was going to do this every day from this spot, I'd need them. But Good God! But I could see you. You're smiling. We're having a good time. What do you want to do here? Because we ain't did much Niners. I got to get your thoughts on Niners as camp comes up. And tonight I'm watching Quarterback on Netflix. You said you're going to dial it up and give it a look. But I'll say this, because I ran into our good friend Bob Sargent, and I told him this, and I was real. The Niners, outside of the Chiefs, obviously, with 3 Super Bowls, since 2019, who's had it better than the Niners? And I give Lynch credit, the boy genius, as I dubbed him, Kyle Shanahan, the drafting, the emergence of Debo. I really want to know this question or this answer. I'm going to give you the question. How many NFL coaches, honestly, Larry Krueger, do you think would have used Debo or had the vision to use Debo like Kyle? I don't think it's more than 2. Okay.
Very few. Though he was utilized a little bit like that in South Carolina.
But people don't know if it was going to translate.
Yeah.
But he built something. He made Debo. And that playoff run 2 years ago, during COVID, where they beat Green Bay, beat Dallas with Jimmy, and went to the Super Bowl, the drafting of Bosa and Greenlaw, and just this whole, everything's gone their way, but the final score, Kittle, and all the things that go with it. So, Larry, I'm just sitting back. Tell me if I'm looking at the Niners wrong. I'm not going to be impressed until not even the NFC Championship game again, Larry. I've upped the bar to where the Niners have got their kudos from the world nationally, but now you got to go get what I feel like this team deserves. But you got to win it, though, and they hadn't. They tricked off that Super Bowl again to Kansas City. They should be 2-0 against the Chiefs. That's just me. You're being a fanboy.
I don't know about that.
Larry, you were up 10 and 19 with 6 minutes left, and Mosley went the wrong way on the 3rd and 100. I'll just leave that there.
But, okay. So what you're telling me is that Jimmy Garoppolo should have beaten Patrick Mahomes.
He was but
that's what you're telling me.
Yes, we watched it.
Okay, but
54 minutes of that game.
So
they were winning.
Who Jimmy Garoppolo is. And we all know who Patrick Mahomes is.
Gotcha.
And there, in the history of the Super Bowl, there haven't been too many examples of Jimmy Garoppolo's beating Patrick Mahomes.
Eli Manning beating Tom Brady twice.
Right.
If you
I'm not
give
saying
me
it's
that,
never happened. I'm just saying it doesn't happen a lot. I'm just saying, at the end of the day,
thank you.
It was still Mahomes beating Purdy, Mahomes beating Jimmy,
but real quick to that,
Reed beating Shanahan.
Had they in 19? Had Kyle said, "F the pass. I don't need the pass. We can keep running the ball." You got to the 49-yard line with about 1:40 left, faster than anybody thought you could, and Kyle dialed up pass plays for Chris Jones to just go. Forrest Whitaker in
Are you talking about this last Super Bowl?
No, 2019, when Honey Badger said I wanted to send a gift basket when they passed because we couldn't stop the run. That ain't on Jimmy. That's on Kyle.
First of all, that Chiefs offense was explosive as hell.
But you had them in check, Larry.
And but they were, to me, that Super Bowl was lost by Kyle Shanahan because of a couple of reasons. One, you knew Kansas City was coming. as far as offensively.
Okay.
They'd put a lot of points. They'd scored big
But that
points.
final drive, Larry,
year.
I know I'm interrupting. That final drive, all Kyle had to keep doing was dial up the run, and you were going to hoist up that Lombardi trophy.
Yeah, well, they haven't run the ball well in the fourth quarter in a lot of these games. But I think more than anything, that Chiefs team, to me, the Niners sat on the ball at the end of the first half when they should have been way more aggressive.
Good call.
They also, these other teams find a way to get the ball in their playmakers' hands in the biggest moments. When the Niners played the Rams in the NFC Championship game and they got down to that last drive, it wasn't Stafford to Van Jefferson. It was Stafford to Cooper Kupp. And yet the 49ers had, at halftime of Super Bowl 54, the betting favorite to win the MVP was Deebo Samuel.
Wow.
And he only touched the ball twice in the second half of that game.
Who was that on, Larry? I'm asking you.
To me, that's on Shanahan. Now, I've asked Shanahan about that, and he's like, hey, that's not the way it is. That's not the way it goes. The defense will determine. I get it. But it does seem like the Rams found a way to get Cooper Kupp the ball. It did seem like when in the second half of Super Bowl 54, Mahomes was able to get the ball to Tyreek Hill. You were not able to get the ball to Deebo Samuel in the second half, and I think that's a big reason of why you lost. This second time around, losing this time, now you've got Purdy played a pretty good game, and they just, to me, the 49ers just kind of blew it. I mean, they really got outplayed in some ways by McDuffie and Snead. I thought McDuffie and Snead outplayed Deebo and Ayuk. So, I mean, they won. They won on the perimeter. And I thought the 49ers, probably when they got to 3rd and 4, should have been in 4-down territory and running the ball. Instead, they're passing on 3rd and 4, and they're kicking a field goal on 4th down, and we all know how it ended. I would have loved to have seen them run it on 3rd and 4 and then run it again on 4th and 1 or 4th and 2 and stay on the field and, win the game and never give the ball back to Mahomes. But they didn't do that. So, I mean, it's, to me, we can question Shanahan, just different mindsets, as far as different play plans. I mean, like Sirianni and the Eagles, they go with a lot of the analytics and they get to 3rd and 4 and it's a rundown for them. And then they run it again on 4th down. And they did it behind a great line led by Kelsey. The Niners don't have a great line, and they didn't play that. They played it differently. They went kind of more old school. They threw the ball on 3rd and 4 and then kicked the field goal on 4th down, and it burned him. So, I mean, I think Kyle Shanahan is a great coach, and I think he is going to get his Super Bowl. I think Kyle Shanahan, what we're seeing now, is kind of what we saw from Andy Reid in Philly. Where it's, he had 13 years. He didn't get it done. Shanahan's now going on year 8. If he doesn't get it done in the next 3 or 4 years, then he's Andy Reid. He's 13 years in San Francisco with no rings.
Got 3.
Right, but were the Eagles smart to get rid of Andy Reid? I mean, you could have claimed that they were when Doug Peterson won them a ring, but now that Reid's won 3 in Kansas City, they don't look as smart. And I would say the same thing to the Shanahan, the crowd that wants to say Shanahan's an idiot. Okay, but are you going to stand up and take the bullets and the slings and the arrows in 5 years when he's, at another stop with his 2nd Super Bowl or 3rd Super Bowl? I think Niner fans, there's reason to be impatient, but there's also reason to stay the course.
No, that's all good stuff. And I'll say this about those people. I can critique and feel like, hey, he cost him or whatnot. But any fool that has seen Jimmy Garoppolo last year in Vegas without Kyle and the fact that his winning record, how stellar it was under Kyle Shanahan, playing in multiple NFC championship games and getting to a Super Bowl. And then Kyle takes Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, out of nowhere, and he's about to get a bag, already played in the Super Bowl. I mean, that's the biggest flex outside of hoisting up a ring or the Lombardi trophy from a coach ever to me, because those, and then no shade at Brock. We don't know what he could be, but it looks damn good. But the fact that this is Mr. Irrelevant that Kyle's winning with, just hold my beer. But you do talk of something that, hopefully Niner fans don't want it to manifest, but if Steiny and I, one of our worst radio fights, Larry, was in the old building over Andy Reid. And I've now lost that fight And then I double back, like, did I really? Because Philly would say, to hell with those three rings.
I think I remember this one.
Boy, it was ugly.
Was at any point did Steiny say, I'm from Reading, Pennsylvania?
He might have. That might have been the one. And then the other one was Lonzo Ball and Ben Simmons. We both lost on that one. But, Larry, the point is, Philly fans don't give a damn, a rat's ass, about his Super Bowls, Andy's, that is, in Kansas City.
Well, they should.
All they care about are the ones that he didn't get. You know, losing the one to New England and the NFC Championship
let's go
games.
through the Shanahan era. Okay, so they lost Super Bowl 54. They lost Jimmy Garoppolo, lost to Patrick Mahomes in Super Bowl 54.
It's so easy to do this exercise without watching it play out.
Okay, but
yes,
still.
Okay.
I'm not going to give you any more information. Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid beat Jimmy Garoppolo, Kyle Shanahan.
Give me the 10-point blow lead in L.A. in the championship game.
Then Stafford and McVay at home beat Jimmy and Shanahan.
You had him down 10 in the fourth.
I'm just saying, Stafford and McVay at home beat Shanahan and Jimmy. Okay. Then Hurts and Sirianni, mug for the camera guy, beat Josh Johnson and the 49ers.
Well, that one was
in
legit.
The NFC Championship game.
Knock Purdy out.
I don't think that Josh Johnson should have won that game. And then last year, even though the Niners were favored, to me, one of the most inexplicable lines of all time was the 49ers with a defense that's not as good as Kansas City's going up against Mahomes and Reed. And the Chiefs were the dog and the Niners were favored. I mean,
but Kansas City had been struggling offensively.
I know.
You know what I mean, Larry?
But they look great against the Ravens, and they had a very conservative game plan against the Ravens. My point is that I know Shanahan should have gotten it done by now. It would be nice if they had gotten it done by now. But it's not heinous that they haven't. Let's not pretend that it is. They didn't have Mahomes and lose to Jimmy Garoppolo. They had Jimmy Garoppolo and lost to Mahomes. They lost to Stafford in L.A. They lost to Hurts with Josh Johnson. We're not talking about tons. I mean, the biggest loss in Kyle Shanahan's career was losing to Tom Brady when he was the offensive coordinator for the Falcons in that Super Bowl.
But I
could
say that's on Dan Quinn's ledger.
Yeah, exactly. It's on Dan Quinn. And also you're losing to Tom Brady. So you've lost to Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts and Matthew Stafford, and you've had Matt Ryan, Josh Johnson, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Brock Purdy.
You know what? If I was a teacher, I'd give you an A-. But why I wouldn't give you an A+, Larry, is you are right when you come at it from that angle. But there was a movie had. There was a game played. And you keep omitting what we saw during the movie. And the only one of the examples you used was Philly. That was just a TKO. But I'm sorry, Larry. Had they closed one of the deals, Kyle Shanahan's star would be higher than heaven.
Which one, though? Which one?
The first Super Bowl in 2019, Jimmy beat Mahomes.
What's the heinous one? What if you said what is the worst defeat for Shanahan in San Francisco? Forget the Atlanta thing because he wasn't even the head coach.
Right. But being real here,
yeah, in San Francisco, is it losing to Stafford? Is it losing to Hurts? Is it losing to Mahomes in Miami? Is it losing to Mahomes last year in Vegas?
And here, you tell me what you think. It's losing last year to Mahomes in Vegas because whether you believe this or not, the overtime rules or your teammates throwing you or your team under the bus, admitting that you didn't know the rules, even that's not why you lost. But it was that from a Kyle Shanahan coach team, I thought that was a bad look.
Yeah, I agree. And I would say last year was the worst of them all.
Okay.
But once again, we're talking about they lost with a quarterback that a year before I told Bonte, this guy's a good quarterback, and he scoffed at me on the 95.
You said that about Purdy?
I said this guy's a future NFL starting quarterback.
On, Larry,
and Bonte and Shasky scoffed at me. and they had a reason to scoff.
They'll scoffing, folks, but I didn't know you had said that.
They weren't alone scoffing, but I'm just saying they scoffed. So that same player that we're scoffing at even being a starting quarterback, a year later loses to Mahomes in a Super Bowl, and now they should have won?
Wow.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I hear what you're saying, and I'm as frustrated.
Does it change the fact that I'm telling you the pressure for the Niners?
I'm more frustrated with Harbaugh and the way he handled Super Bowl 47 than I am with any of the Shanahan.
Wow, Larry.
Because Harbaugh gagged.
Wow.
He gagged.
But those were 4 of the worst out routes I've ever seen thrown by a quarterback.
But no doubt.
Those were
terrible passes, but he gagged.
Oh, man.
You had first and goal.
You did.
With 2 minutes and 20
Gordon
seconds
touched the
left.
ball again after he got you down there.
You hand the ball to a Michael James on first down.
Man.
You don't run Kaepernick ever. You don't run Gore ever. You throw fades
But is
to
that on the
Crabtree.
OC? What's my guy's name?
Greg Roman?
Yeah, I'm like, come on.
Giro.
That's on Romy.
Yeah. But I'm just saying.
Phenomenal.
It's on Harbaugh. Because it's on Harbaugh. You know why it was on Harbaugh? Because they not only did they have a time, they literally allowed an old, decrepit Ravens defense that was, and I was on the binoculars. Yeah. I'm watching this firsthand. I'm sitting there, and I'm telling the guy I'm sitting next to, I'm like, the Ravens are done. The Ravens are done. I'm watching this.
No, I get it.
You can see it. Ed Reed holding his shorts. Ray Lewis holding his shorts. Bernard Pollard holding his shorts. Haloti Ngata out of gas. They get the 2-minute warning, and moron Harbaugh called a timeout because he couldn't get the play called.
That hurt.
They essentially gave the Ravens like 12 minutes of real time with commercials from the 2-minute warning and the timeout that they called. They essentially gave them like 12 to 15 minutes to like towel off, catch their breath, and load up for a final series, and they did.
Damn, Larry, I hadn't heard it like that.
That was the gag job of gag jobs. That was far worse than what Shanahan has endured. But Shanahan, it's a bottom line world.
Okay.
And Shanahan right now has no rings. And he's the best coach in football. He's like Phil Mickelson before Easter Sunday at the Masters. He's the best to never have gotten it done, right? Phil was at that spot until he got it done.
That's a great call.
This guy's there. He's the best coach in the league not to win the Super Bowl. But if you quit on him, shame on you.
And I'm not advocating for that at all.
I know you are. But I mean, there's a lot of people that do want to quit.
I do got to say this or ask. I guess I'm the only one that's concerned about this. I'm going to use the word crippling. This Greenlaw injury, and whenever he does come back, and if he's what he was when he did before he got hurt, I feel like everybody's just got their head buried in the cloud, like in the sand, like, oh, no big deal. He was everything.
Everything.
Is that legit concern coming from me?
Yes.
Because they were getting ran on against Green Bay with them. That's all. Right. With them.
Yeah, no, this is a major problem.
Detroit on line 1.
Yeah, I mean, the 49ers have a couple problems. One of them is their offensive line. I don't know how good their offensive line is.
Haven't we been saying that for 5 years and they still just keep winning? I
mean, they needed to upgrade their line of scrimmage from last year, and they really may have done it, but they may not have done it. They added Dominic Pooney. They added Jared Kingston. They added some veterans. They added Drake Nugent. None of those guys are slated to start. I don't know that the offensive line is any better than it was last year. Defensive line, they lose Armstead. They lost Chase Young. They said goodbye to Cleveland Farrell. They said goodbye to Randy Gregory. They've got 6 new faces on the defensive line. I don't know that they're improved enough on either the offensive line or the defensive line. Then you talk about the run D. Didn't stop the run last year.
No, they didn't.
Now you have no Armstead, your best defender against the run up front. No Greenlaw, probably till Thanksgiving. And no Afonga, at least in week 1. Arguably, Goo, those are your best run defenders on all 3 levels of your D. So to me, the 49ers run D, very much a question mark. The 49ers on the line of scrimmage, both sides, offensive line, defensive line, very much a question mark.
Yeah. No, Larry, I'm with you, man.
You know, people question Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's going to be a freaking...
The least of your problems.
Yeah, it's the least of your problems. Brock Purdy's going to have a really good year. They'll get the Ayuk thing done. I really believe they'll get the Ayuk thing done. I think a lot of this is just posturing. I think they'll get it done. The Niners, if you look at when the Niners sign these extensions, most of them come in and around the beginning of camp. I think they'll get the Ayuk thing done. Been too much talk about Ayuk, not enough talk about the run D.
I love that. Now, PFF, I don't know where you're at on that, whether you believe them or not, or put a lot of credence into what they do.
A little
But
credence.
Larry, my eyes didn't show this, and I still watch the Super Bowl ad nauseum. They said that the Debo, specifically Debo and Ayuk, weren't getting separation. And that was the reason that Ayuk only had 6 targets, and Debo pretty much was a non-factor. Is there is that legit to you at all?
Yes. I mean,
Then I can't just go write you a blank check, Ayuk.
Well, it's not a standard answer like, they were covered or something like that. It's not like for the game. I mean, there were examples of Ayuk freeing himself up.
Oh, we saw it at the goal line. He dropped the dude.
But if you watch the best media that was out there, in my opinion, after the Super Bowl was Baldy, who's
the man,
who's awesome, right? And Baldy's
Shark
amazing.
Week 8.
He does a pod with a guy named Chris Gargano, I think his name is.
Grandy's gonna know.
And they had the Chiefs DC on.
Oh, okay.
Spagnuolo.
Yeah.
And Spags, and he's tight with Spags, and it was awesome. It was an incredible hour. And Spags trusts Baldy, and they know each other going way back. So they're talking very frankly.
I think I know where you're going.
And in this live stream, podcast, he credited Spags credited McDuffie and Snead. He's like, man, when you have Trent McDuffie and you have L'Jarius Snead, you can play man to man and lock these guys up. He's like, those two guys allowed me the flexibility to do all kinds of things defensively, and that's why the Niners lost the Super Bowl.
Wow.
I think. I mean, if you want to say primary reason, give me. I mean.
The McCaffrey fumble, I'll never in a football game say something that happened. And fumbles do hurt.
Fumbles hurt.
But that can't be the one, though, in the first quarter, Larry.
I'm much more apt, if you know me, to credit somebody for beating me than to blame us for losing. Because I don't go into every game going, my team should win. No. Maybe your team deserves blame, but maybe the other side deserves credit. I really think you got to credit Mahomes. You got to credit Reed. They didn't have hardly any weapons. They had nothing. I mean, they literally. I saw Kansas City early in the year. At the end of the year, they just said, you know what? If your name's not Travis Kelce, Rashee Rice, or Isaiah Pacheco, you're not touching the ball.
That's why it hurts more from a Niner standpoint that was, Steve Young said it. Steve's been keeping it real.
Yeah.
He said this was the time to get him. Forget 19, Goo and Larry. This was the time. And now they
But credit Andy because he simplified. And he did it in the Baltimore game. In Baltimore, he just said, you know what? We are not going to do anything. Well, our tackles are not that great, so guess what? We're going to run between the guards. They ran Pacheco in the A-gap the entire first half. They did nothing. They didn't take a 7-step drop and allow Jadeveon Clowney ever to take a shot at Mahomes. They got super conservative, turtled in their shell, ran it in the A-gap.
Wow.
I mean, and they simplified their game plan. Credit them. I would credit Kansas City and credit Spagnuolo and Snead and McDuffie before I would rip the Niners.
You know what? We'll continue this conversation on the other side. That voice is Larry Krueger. Next week, our lineup is going to be jacked up. Starting Monday, Willard and Dibbs will be on from 6 to 10. Ponte and Shasky will be on from 10 to 2. And yours truly and